Hey guys, we're going to solve equations with variables on both sides now. Reminder that our goal is still to isolate the variable. We're still going to look to see if we can simplify any of our sides first. Okay, look to see if we can distribute, look to see if we can combine any like terms. Remember, when you're simplifying just one side of the equal sign, there are no inverse operations yet. But then we're going to have that issue of, okay, variables are on both sides. Okay, we need to get them to the same side of the equal sign. And we are going to do that using inverse operations. Okay, trying to highlight that. Apologize for my slow computer. Okay, so it doesn't matter what side you move them to. In fact, the first example I'll do both ways, okay, but you want them on the same side. And then once you get them on the same side, it's really just going to be a two-step equation again from there. So let's look at this first example. We have 7n minus 5 equals 10n plus 13. I'm looking at that left-hand side of my equation, nothing to simplify, not like terms. My right-hand side, same thing, not like terms. So we have no distributing and combining here. We are just going to jump into now, let's get those variables on the same side of the equation. Okay, so I'm going to take that 10n, and I need to move that 10n over where my n's are on this side. Okay, this is the Mrs. Trebecki way. She just likes moving her variables to that left-hand side of the equation. So I'm going to take that 10n. If I want to get rid of 10n, I must subtract 10n. Because kind of similar to what we were doing before, if I have 10n's and I subtract 10n's, that really just equals 0, and I have successfully gotten rid of it from this side. Whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other side. Okay, those of you who like that little line down the middle, I will do that. And the reason I put it underneath my n's is because I want my n's together. It doesn't make sense to put it under the minus 5. Okay, I can't combine those. So I'm going to say 7n minus 10n is negative 3n. Bring down my minus 5 still. And on the other side, I still have that positive 13. And now it's just a two-step equation. Okay, that negative 3 is stuck to that n. Let's move that minus 5 by adding 5 to both sides. Bring down that negative 3n equals 18. Final step, divide both sides by negative 3, and n is negative 6. And that's our answer. Okay, just to prove a point and show you that it really does not matter which way you move your variable, I'm going to do the question again. Okay, but instead of moving my 10n's over to the left, I'm going to say let's move my 7n's over to the right. This is what I like to do. Okay, I like to look at kind of ahead and see, what's going to keep my n's positive. Okay, in that first example we did, we moved that over and then we had to deal with that negative 3, and some of you guys have some issues with that. But I'm going to look at this and say, okay, if that's going to make it negative, then let's take those 7n's and move them to the right. To do that, I must subtract 7n and subtract 7n. Okay, 7n minus 7n is 0. That leaves us with a negative 5. We have 10n's minus 7n's, that's 3n's, and plus 13. Now I must subtract 13 from both sides. I get negative 18 equals 3n. And then finally divide by 3, and we get negative 6 equals n, which is the same exact thing. So once again, does not matter which way you do it. Okay, honor system right here. Okay, I want you to pause the video, try these 2 checkpoint questions, and then hit play, and you will see if you are correct. Okay guys, so hopefully you've solved these 2 already. Okay, for the first one, I think let's move this 3n to the other side, so we're going to subtract 3n. 3n minus 3n is 0, 5n minus 3n is 2n, and bring everything else down. We have to add 2 to both sides, so we get 2n equals 8, and then divide by 2, n equals 4. We didn't talk about the check yet, just to show you the check if you choose to do it. Okay, in this case, you're going to plug that n in both sides of the equation. So we think n is 4, so it'll be 5 times 4 minus 2. We want to know, does that equal 3 times 4 plus 6? And a little bit different than our checks we've done already, we don't have that one number on the one side of the equation. So we're really just going to do the math on both sides and see, do our two numbers match in the end? So this side would be 20 minus 2, which is 18. The other side, this would give us 12 plus 6, which is also 18. So that tells us that n equals 4 is correct. On the second one, I'm looking at this. I want to move this lone m, if you want to put that 1 in front, to that right-hand side. So I'm going to subtract the m from here. Bring down my negative 1. 9m minus 1m is 8m plus 15. Subtract my 15 from both sides. We get negative 16 equals 8m. And then divide by 8, and m is negative 2. Okay, some weird things can happen when we have variables on both sides, so let's talk about that now. Okay, there's going to be some instances where your equation isn't possible. Okay, it's going to have no solution. So let's look at this example. We see the parentheses, so hopefully we recognize, we need to distribute there. So that's going to give us 10x plus 5 equals 10x. Now some people might recognize what's happening right away, because I'm looking at this side. I have a 10x and a 10x. If I ignored that plus 5, 10x would equal 10x. That would be a true statement. But can I have 10x and on one side add 5 to it, and on the other side do nothing and still have them be equal? That just doesn't make sense. Okay, but let's say you didn't recognize it right there. You would probably keep going and say, okay, I'm going to try and get my variables to the same side. So I would say, let's subtract my 10x and subtract my 10x on this side, because that's 0. We're left with 5. But on the other side, 10x minus 10x is also 0. Our variables completely disappeared, and we're left with this untrue statement. If that happens, your answer is no solution. You can either write out the words, or you can use this little symbol. Okay, I kind of think it looks like the no smoking sign. Okay, but it's that circle with that backward slash. That happens to mean no solution. Okay, so just as a review, this happened when variables disappeared and there was an untrue statement, or a false statement, however you want to think of it. Okay, variables disappear, untrue statement. Okay, I should probably also add my little does not equal in there to be mathematically correct. Okay, our next one is actually going to have all numbers. So if we have this, okay, my left-hand side can't do anything, right-hand side have to distribute. So I'm going to bring down 6x plus 2 equals 6x plus 2. And you can see now that we literally have the same exact thing on both sides of the equal sign. And what's going to happen here is that means you can plug in any number, and since you're doing the same thing on both sides, it's always going to be the same thing. So if I plugged in 0 here, for instance, this side would give me 6 times 0 is 0, so that would give me 2. If I plugged it in over here, 0 times 6 would be 0 plus 2, so I'd get 2 equals 2, which is true. So 0 is a solution. But I could plug in 1, and I would get 8 equals 8, so 1's a solution. So we can't just sit there and list every single number. So in that case, we would just say all numbers. Once again, if you didn't recognize what was happening right now, what would happen is you would go to try and get those variables to the same side, but you would end up with 2 equals, this is just 0, so be 2 equals 2. So if your variables disappear and you have a true statement, that's when it's all numbers. Okay, once again, I'm going to have you guys pause the video, try the 2 questions at the bottom, and when you think you are set, hit play and you can check how you did. Okay, in the first one, on the right-hand side, we need to distribute. So we get 25t equals 25t plus 5. Some of you may have recognized right now what's going on, but let's try to get those variables to the same side. I'm going to move this one over, because really on the other side I only have 25t. So that's going to give me 0 equals 5, which we know is not true. So this is your no solution question. Okay, on the other side, we distribute. We get 14p plus 7 equals 14p plus 7. Same exact thing on both sides. But if for some reason you didn't recognize that, let's move our p's to the same side. But those go away, and 7 equals 7. So it is all numbers. Okay, if you have any questions on anything, try to jot them down so that we can talk about this and try some classwork tomorrow.